I've been doing game dev for a little while now, but it's always just been little things. I've never full on released a game, you know. I'm also a big fan of Yahtzee's old Devlog series, where he made a game every month, and also of the Sock Pop Collective, who makes games every month as well. I want to try and do this, but I want to give it more time than just a month. So, here's my plan. I want to make 4 games in 12 months. That's 1 game every 3 months. I feel like this is a better time frame than just every month, and worst comes to worst, I'll push it back to 3 games, 1 game every 4 months, but we'll see. Game number 1, I'm actually using a game jam as the main source of inspiration to start this challenge. So the Godot Wild Game Jam number 53, I think it gives me a week to create a game with the theme of assembly with the optional challenge of 4 colors. Also, it needs to be made in Godot, but that's my game engine of choice. Combining these 2 limitations led me to the idea of making my first game a basic combination of the look and gameplay of Barber as You with the management system strategy aspect of Papers, Please. Blackboarding this, basically you'll push these modules to the assembly machine where you'll produce custom ducks for different orders. I started by making a basic character in Assaprite with a basic movement script. Start with a frame change. Each input checks a raycast in that direction and moves the player 32 pixels in that direction if they can. The whole world is in a 32 by 32 grid, and next I also made a global signal that emits every time the player moves, called player tick, which right now it just changes the wall sprite, but it's gonna be like in Barber as You, where everything is based off of the player tick rate. Day 2, I made these assembly modules that you push around. Think of the words in Barber as You. Right now there's 2 yellows, an S, and a Q, which, me recording in this future means smarts and quality, but back then I just put whatever I wanted in there. And I made 2 reds, a TNT and a gun. I made them into an area 2D, and in my raycast detection code, if a player hits one of these, it emits a signal called player pushed, which is then caught by the block, which then moves. Then I added a tween for the movement, so things slide around and rotate when moved. Look at this. I can push things. They do a little spinny animation. Everything will have its own raycast and can call the global check raycast path based on the direction it's going. So things all call the same global function, and push is the same. In the 3rd day, I decided to make a conveyor / assembly belt thing, which in theory you'll push the ducks on and they'll go to the end for assembly. Also, I want these belts to also act as a barrier to stop the player from pushing blocks against the edge, because I CBF implementing a backwards button, and this is just done into check tile code where blocks can't go on belt tiles, but players can. And now I've got a basic prototype of the game. Look, the gameplay loop will be you push these mod blocks to the assembly modules, and then you push the ducks onto the assembly belt, and then they go through the conveyor belt to be modularized. Speaking about the fucking ducks, boom! Look, I added a duck. I changed the colors a little bit. The duck can push things. Wow, you can push the duck. Wow, how cool. I added some little particles for walking to both the player and the ducks. And then, finally, I made the conveyor belt push the ducks in the way that the conveyor belt is going. Basically, these belts all push the duck using the same code file. They determine the direction based on the groups that they're in. So, down is in a belt down group. The belt themselves don't actually push the duck. Instead, when the duck's on the area, the belt emits a signal which is then caught by the duck. So the movement is done all in the duck's main code, and it's just the duck reacting to this signal. This red block here is where the ducks will be what I call crunched, where they get assembled, I guess. I'll implement this later. Right now, I was still in a particle making sort of mood, so I tried to emulate these like alternative animation styles with particles in Godot instead. I used a mask of the player for each direction, and it changes depending on what you're going. I don't know what the size of the particle should be, but it looks sort of unique. It gives the effects of I don't know, dandruff stars in the night sky. When you move, it leaves this little trail. Look, I don't know, I was just experimenting, but it sort of fits the 4-color limit. On the 5th day, I worked on a train that will deliver orders out. Once the duck has been modded to suit the order, you push them into this train. The duck gets buckled in. Yeah, see, that I did that with tweens. The duck gets buckled in, and you send the orders out, and it checks the duck's info based off of the orders info. Also, I added a button that spawns in ducks now. Holy moly. There's no limit on the amount of ducks you can spawn. I'll probably add one in later. And I made an animation for when the duck gets crunched. I was running out of time for the jam, but oh well, I just want to get something out to get some basic feedback and make this video. So I worked on the assembly crunching system, I guess, I don't know what to call it. Ducks actually have their info, and now when they get crunched, the touching mod stats are added. So now you see this one duck, it has no stats, it goes through the assembly module. Now it has 1 S. It's a dumb fuck, so it goes through again, and now it has 2 S's. And that's the basic gist of how you'll give stats to the ducks. I added a basic random ass order system that scales with each successive order. Right now it's just random ducks, but I needed some sort of system for the jam. In the future I'm planning to make it so you get to choose out of set ones and it'll be more like planned out. I made some little animations that play when you get the wrong order and there's a new order, and you basic ass menu with like volume and UI scaling. There's a neat little tween animation I used here also when you go up in volume, and oh, it's pretty neat. And finally, I got core reviews, the man behind the hit channel Spilling the Milk, to make background music. It's pretty fucking good. That's it. That's pretty much it. I've ran out of time. So I've got a basic gameplay loop down. You push the blocks to set up for orders. You push the ducks onto the belt. The ducks gets crunched. Then you push the ducks onto the train to send them out. And then you get more ducks. There's some bugs going on. There's a particular bug where instead of pushing the duck, you walk onto the same tile as a duck. This is pretty fucking annoying, but I was role-playing it as a duck's just walking under your feet, but I need to fix this soon. So making a prototype in a week was fun and all, but holy moly, it was a lot of fucking work. I'm slowing things down a little bit afterwards. Here's another entire week, but I only did 4 main things. 1, movement is fixed. Ducks no longer go on the same tile as the player. It's easier to move and push things in general. This was a pretty simple fix. It was basically, I added a delay to the player's movement to wait for the duck's animation to play. I don't know why I didn't think of this during the jam, but oh well, that just happens. 2, I've added some more cosmetics to the ducks. The S mod stat makes the ducks smarter. Their brains grow. Look, cool, their brains grow. And the Q mod stat is a quality upgrade, so stars appear above the ducks. And I still need to give the ducks both a TNT vest and some guns, but that'll be in a future video with its own title and thumbnail. The 3rd thing is that assembly mods can now be chained together, only of the same type. So in example, 3 TNT blocks will give the duck 3 TNT stats on 1 pass through. Also, the stats are maxed out at 4 now. The duck will be destroyed if it goes over. And the final thing is I improved the menu settings will now carry over when restart. So that was basically 2 weeks of game dev. I prototyped my first game out of the many I'll be making over the course of this year through this challenge. Let's see if I can keep a schedule. I'm gonna try and release a devlog every 2 weeks for this series, so hey, subscribe to me if you want, and thanks for watching. That's the end of the video. Bye bye.